For me, because I was a public school educator for so many years, and I was a white teacher of children of color for most of those years, the issue of race and class have been really significant issues in my life, because I wanted to be the best possible teacher I could be of my children, my students. And the public education system was so underserved. And I felt the students I taught were so under-resourced that became my mission to make sure that they got everything they deserved. And doing that makes you an activist, and makes, when you become an advocate for children, and when you become an advocate for part of the community that has the least resources because of institutional racism, you have to become a very persevering activist and advocate outside of the classroom.
It's taking a role in something you believe in and trying to make a change in the world. It's working against injustice, and it's working for the things that you want, like peace. Doesn't matter what I do in life, there's always something that needs to be improved.
Well, I had already heard about a group called Code Pink. They had a chapter in Philadelphia, and I had gone to a couple of meetings, and they sent out a notice about the Grannies, that the Grannies were going to be at Rittenhouse Square giving out flyers. And I just thought, this sounds like a really good group for me, like it would be a really good fit. So I went down, and that's when I discovered that the Grannies, and they would wear hats, they would wear flowered hats, and it just, the whole thing struck me, the whole kind of street theater, and the perfect fit for it. And, and then I found out that they were going to be arrested. They were planning to go to the recruitment center, and try to enlist and get arrested, because the New York Grannies had done that. And actually I had followed that in the Times. There were articles about them going to court every day, and I really was inspired by that. So when I heard the Philadelphia Grannies were going to do it, I said, yes, this is great. And I couldn't attend the meeting where they were going to be talking about the strategies and what to do if you get arrested. But I had a private meeting with one of the Grannies in my neighborhood at the local cafe, and she gave me all the details. And I was just so happy to be part of that action.
I come from a family that is really very much a microcosm of the country that I live in. My family was troubled. There's a lot of addiction in my family, like there's a lot of addiction in my culture. And some trauma and drama, and growing up was hard, and being who you were was hard. So my first act of defiance, healthy defiance, was to get sober from an alcohol addiction and go into a 12-step program and begin to speak the truth about being a woman and being sober and the things that had happened to me as a child, and to break free of the indoctrination that I had grown up with. That was my first time of really speaking out and becoming self-responsible. And that's what I want to say about activism, that it's about starting right where you are to understand where you come from, what makes you tick, and to go through a process of both healing and learning and undoing the indoctrination. Before I had done that, I was very unable to really affect change in the world, because I was so wounded myself. I was so indoctrinated and so cut off from truth and from who I really was, that work needed to be done. And I see a lot of wounded healers in the world that mean well but make things worse because of their own unfinished business. So for me, that's key to successful activism.
Sometimes you see something and it makes you angry, and you let it go. Other times you see things and somebody said to me, you've got to pick your fights. You only have so much energy, you only have so much time. So find an issue you really care about something you really care about, deep in your gut, and define that issue. Because frequently I find people, oh, I don't like the way that's happening. I don't like that. But what about it don't you like? Define that issue. And once you get your issue that you're upset with defined, it's a little easier to find other people that care about the same thing. Because you can talk about, you can explain why you're concerned. And that will help you focus. Once you know what you really care about, you identify the people who could change this issue if you can, and you know who to appeal to get the change you want done to actually occur.
Find a group of people with whom you feel compatible and with whom you share basic and deep values, and work with them, whether things are going well or things are not going well. To not feel alone in all this is really important.
A lot of times, a lot of our signs will say something like advice from the grannies or listen to your grannies. And a lot of times when I give out our flyers, I'll say something like a message from the grannies. And I think it resonates with people because people have good feelings about their grandparents, their grandmothers, and so I think they think about, like, well, grandmothers care. Maybe they care about the future. They care about us. And maybe it's something that we have to pay attention to.
I guess for me, over the years, things became very interconnected. All the issues, instead of them being separate issues, they all, I guess it's, you can't have peace without justice, and it gets to what is justice, but issues around race and gender, the women's movement was significant in my life. It raised my consciousness and became important in my teaching of American history. So for me, the issues are all interconnected. Being an activist isn't a single issue.
One of the most satisfying moments was working hard for the election of Barack Obama and having that succeed. But of course now things are very different, and I'm very unhappy with the way things are in the country right now, and having to accept the fact that things don't keep on getting better, they go back and forth.
Life is difficult. There's a lot of joy, but there's also a lot of pain. And I think our challenge always is to realize that that is life, and to try and embrace what is life, and to be strong, and to try to keep the love flowing, to keep the joy alive, and to keep on dancing, but also to know it's okay to cry.
Well, I heard on the radio one time when I was driving, because I remember this clearly, and somebody said, what would you miss if there were a nuclear war? This was, my kids were little, but I was driving by this field of hay, and they had just baled it. And it's so beautiful when they first do that, cut the hay and bale it in the rolls. And I thought I'd really miss that sight. And that's what got me going. And so soon after, I saw that there was a nuclear freeze movement in Westchester, Pennsylvania. And I got involved there.
Got front row seats at the festivities in front of Independence Hall. They always have all this patriotic stuff, and the Philly Pops plays patriotic songs, and it's upbeat, kind of fun, and very old-style patriotism. We managed to get almost a whole section of the front row, and we sat in our hats, no t-shirts, nothing, very decorous, and at some point they honored veterans, and John McCain was speaking from a TV screen, he wasn't there in person. But as soon as they started talking about veterans and war, we stood up all together, and we had this long banner that said, "Listen to your grannies, war no more." And it was so visible from the stage. Everybody on the stage had to see it. And we were just as proud as we we celebrated.
I think we have a wonderful generation now. I think our young people are not as racist as we were raised. I think that they're far more understanding and diversity in terms of people and lifestyles. So I'm somewhat encouraged by that. However, I think that we don't get the governments we deserve. And that worries me. People are not engaged enough in the issues of the day. I don't think people are reading newspapers. Newspapers are going out of business because of that. Unfortunately, many people rely upon television. And television, usually in terms of the news, speak in captions and really don't give you the full story. So I think that that's a terrible problem. People have to be much better educated and do a better job in educating themselves about what is happening in the world. So I think that, however, this young generation and what's happened recently with all of the demonstrations that have been occurring and the consistency with which people are coming to meetings and engaging in political activity is very encouraging. So I have hope.